much for joining us, Mark. Absolutely brilliant to have you here. Principal trumpet, BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra. I met you about 6 months ago, I think, working up in Glasgow. And you sound great, I have to say, just at this point. Marvellous player you are. But you said something to me once. You said, I used to be told that I'm talented at playing the trumpet. You know, one of those sort of God-given things, or it's in your genes or something like that. You told me about a book you'd read called Bounce.
Yep.
Bounce by Matthew Said.
Yeah.
Right. Talk us through your thoughts on that. Is there such a thing as just being talented? Or is it all hard graft? What do you reckon?
Let me just do one thing first, Nicole, and that is just to move the pole out of the way because it's covering your face completely.
That could be good.
What to do with that? I will answer your question.
By the way, do you like my wall art? It's good.
I like it. I like it. Yes.
You've got some too. Well done.
Sort of. I need to just move this pole. Can I just see what to do?
There should be a little red dot in the top left-hand corner of the pole, so you can close it.
It's not coming up. No, I'm trying to just move it aside. Sorry.
All right.
Why is that? I'll just. How do I do this? Oh, no.
Not working.
No.
You touch somewhere else on the screen. Click on the picture.
Yeah. Just at the gallery view, speaker view. Just a minute. Okay, it will just do. It will be fine. It will do. It's right in your face, but never mind.
I'm so sorry.
It's
click on something else down the bottom, like audio or something like that.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. We'll get there in a minute.
Yes, sorry. It's my lack of knowledge on how to use the computer. But I see you have 6 participants, which is good.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I'll just keep doing it. I'll just carry on. So, look, the book Bounce. I've been reading this, and this is thank you to one of my dear students at the RCS, the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. He recommended this book Bounce by Matthew Said. And can I read just a little bit of it? Is this okay, just to read a bit, which kind of struck me? And it's the question, what is talent? What is talent? Okay, in 1991, Anders Ericsson, a psychologist at Florida State University, and 2 colleagues conducted the most extensive investigation ever undertaken into the causes of outstanding performance. We're talking music here in particular, obviously. Their subjects, violinists at the renowned Music Academy of West Berlin in Germany, were divided into 3 groups. The first group comprised the outstanding students, the boys and girls expected to become international soloists, the pinnacle of musical performance. These were the kids who would normally be described as super talented, youngsters supposedly lucky enough to have been born with special musical genes. The second group of students were extremely good, but not as accomplished as the top performers. These were expected to end up playing in the world's top orchestras, but not as star soloists. In the final group were the least able students, teenagers studying to become music teachers. Everyone laughs at that one, of course. A course with far less stringent admission standards. The ability levels of the 3 groups were based on the assessment of the professors and corroborated by objective measures such as success in open competitions. After a painstaking set of interviews, Ericsson found that the biographical histories of the 3 groups were remarkably similar and showed no systematic differences. The age when the students began practice was around 8 years of age, which was the same time they began formal lessons. The average age when they first decided to become musicians was just before they turned 15. The average number of music teachers who had taught them was 4.1, and the average number of musical instruments that they had studied beyond the violin was 1.8. 0.8 must be a viola or something like that. Never mind. But anyway, there was one difference between the groups that was both dramatic and unexpected. Indeed, it was so stark that it almost jumped out at Ericsson and his colleagues. The number of hours devoted to serious practice. By the age of 20, the best violinists had practiced an average of 10,000 hours, more than 2,000 more than the good violinists, and more than 6,000 hours more than the violinists hoping to become music teachers. These differences are not just statistically significant, they're extraordinary. Top performers had devoted thousands of additional hours to the task of becoming master performers. But that's not all. Ericsson also found that there were no exceptions to this pattern. Nobody who had reached the elite group without copious practice, and nobody who had worked their socks off but failed to excel. Purposeful practice was the only factor distinguishing the best from the rest. Now that really struck me.
The emphasis there is on the purposeful bit, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of my childhood standing in a practice room, not actually achieving very much. And it was only really when I hit my 20s and I started to suddenly understand about effective practice and realised what a massive difference that makes and how you're wasting your time actually if you're just going through the motions.
Yeah, let's look at the idea of going through the motions. Most of us drive a car. If you don't, you know how the car works, you know what to do. You put the foot in the accelerator once the engine is started, you put it in gear and so on and so on and so on. To stop the car, you put your foot in the brake. So imagine you start driving at the age of, let's say 16 for the sake of argument, and we do 10 years or roughly 10,000 hours of driving. Does that make you a better driver? It might do, but it's not necessarily the case, because we tend to drive within a speed limit of 30 miles an hour if you're in a built-up area. On the motorway, we drive 70. We're not always thinking about driving. I'm not always thinking about what our minds drift basically into other things, like what we have for dinner, where we're going out tonight to meet our friends. It's not always involved in the act of driving, so it's not very purposeful driving. But we're still able to drive. We can drive for 10,000 hours, not be a better driver at the end of it. But with let's say a rally driver or someone that's expert, a world beater, if you like, they're always thinking about driving. You know, it's always on their mind. They have the right conditions. They're always out on the race course, getting better times, getting more efficient, getting better tires perhaps for their car. They're always involved in the sport. And if you liken that to music, the same could be said. I'm just getting rid of something off the screen here. So the same could be said of the top performers. They're always thinking about how to improve, how to negotiate a shift on the violin or something on a brass instrument that would make them a bit more sounding better and a bit more efficient as a player. That could be said of any sort of physical sport or even mental sport. For example, chess. Chess is cited a lot in this book, Bounce, as well. It's the 10,000 hours theory is a very, very strong one, as long as it's purposeful.
So now, as a professional principal trumpeter, you know, many people would say, "Oh, you've made it. You can just stay there now and maintain your playing," which is harder than it sounds in its own right. How do you approach your practice? I presume you do still practice.
Yeah, of course I do. Yes, honestly.
Well done. Correct answer.
Yep, I do. I do practice. Yeah.
How do you approach it? Is there a formula you have?
Well, first thing that comes to mind is I love it. I love practicing. I love the I don't know, the feel of the trumpet in my hands, the way everything to do with it. I love the idea of practicing. And again, it's the idea that if I just went through the motions and just held the trumpet or played some tunes that I'm really comfortable with, then I'm really not improving anything. I'm not thinking about it. My mind is drifting already into something else. Where I'm just going through the motions. And it's very easy to do that. You can coast for many years. Even sitting in an orchestra, one can sit there and happily pass time. And sooner or later, I believe their what's the right word? Their ability, I guess, will drop. Their prowess will become diminished. On the instrument, and some people are found out and some people aren't, and that's just the way life is, I guess. But if you're true to yourself and you really love what you do, and you're thinking a lot about making the best possible sounds you can, and finding better teachers to help you, or better techniques that will help you, you're always engrossed in the art of music making, whether it's thinking about phrasing or how to play mom symphony better, or whatever it is.
We have a guy called Edward watching today. Hi, Edward. He's just sent us a very interesting comment, actually, saying it sounds like obsessiveness. Says Charlie Parker practiced at times 12 hours a day. So if I managed 20 hours a day, I'd be better than Wynton Marsalis.
Yeah.
But what's your answer to what do you say to that?
I think it's great. It can be obsessive, yeah. But we're also
you need to be a perfectionist, don't you, to a certain degree?
Yeah. I think we're obsessive about lots of things we don't even realize, such as being able to read, for example. We've been learning how to read since we were being able to speak a language, whatever language that is. We're obsessed by that, even though we don't really realize it. We've been doing it since our parents or whoever was looking after us when we were babies helped us to speak. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what it sounded like. What would it sound like to speak if we'd never heard it? How do we fare in the world if we'd never heard someone speaking to us or singing to us? What's it like to sing if we've never heard it? So by the art of practicing that, we get our mums and dads speak to us, and then we repeat what they're saying, and then we get a good experience, and they say, well done, and everything's great, and you get the endorphin rush, and you try and repeat the experience, and you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it till you get better and better at it, and mommy and daddy are very pleased, and then you get another adrenaline or endorphin rush, and so on, and so it goes, and you get better and better, and you end up with something like 20,000 words as an adult, roughly speaking, and you become more proficient at that as time goes on.
But then you become, an adult, or obviously before that, you can speak properly, and many of us don't think about it. Many of us speak without thinking. And
sure.
Too much. And some people are very, very silent, but when they do speak, it's hilarious. There's definitely some people that think about these things, and there's definitely some people that other things are important to them. So has music always been this important to you from a young age, or is it as you've developed your career, you've become more focused in what you're doing?
A little bit of both, maybe. I was very fortunate. I had a very good piano teacher, but also music teacher. She instilled, I could say, maybe she inspired me to have a love of music from the age of about 7. She was my first piano teacher. She's now passed away very sadly. Margaret O'Leary was her name. And she literally moved toward the house next door to where we lived. And my mom and dad found out that she was a music teacher and a piano teacher, and asked her, basically kept knocking on her door, and she had retired at this stage and didn't really want to teach anymore, but they pestered her basically. And she was, so it was from that very early age as well. And then I was very fortunate also that the conditions were right, if you want to be scientific about it, that my dad played trumpet in a kind of a jazz type band. He used to tour around Ireland before he was married, and he met my mom and so on. And I was just very fortunate. The conditions were right, and that's important as well. It's not just realizing, oh, I can play the trumpet, I want to really develop this and get better and better because I love it. But also the conditions need to be right. We need to have good teachers.
Somebody asking a question here saying that they started playing age 16. Is it too late?
No.
Become a professional trumpeter to get those 10,000 hours in, or however many thousand you're going to do?
No. 16 is as good an age as 6 or 60. Because I don't know a lot about neuroscience, but the way the brain seems to work is that it's got plasticity, neuroplasticity, that we can change the way we behave, or that we can alter. It's more of an elastic kind of process. We can change our attitudes in life. If you were to consider at the age of 10, our attitudes to our teachers, perhaps at school, we didn't really like them. Some of them maybe, some of them we loved. And then at the age of 20, we were very thankful for them, and we actually thought, oh, now actually they were amazing for us. So we're always changing our attitudes. We're always being it's this neuroplasticity that we have. So at any age, it's great. You can do your 10,000 hours or your 1,000 hours if you like. If it's purposeful, you'll achieve something better than you are now. You'll achieve in life as well, not just in music, but you become better at relationships and important stuff other than music, as well as music.
Before we move on, just one last comment from Edward. Hi, Edward. You're a good man for asking the questions. He of course quotes he says, "What about Mozart? You know, he managed to compose symphonies like the Hafner within 12 days. So talent must count, surely." You know.
Okay, I could. Yeah, there's a quote about Mozart in Bounce. Actually, I won't be able to find it, but I'm going to quickly flick through it.
Didn't he do 10,000 hours though? I read somewhere that he had done his 10,000 hours, but incredibly early on because of his dad.
That's what Matthew Syed says as well here in this book. It's an amazing book. The name again is Bounce by Matthew Syed, S-Y-E-D. I'm really hooked in it, and it mentions Mozart actually, and yeah, I'm not going to bore you by looking for it, but my memory of the little article about Mozart was that his dad Leopold was he was very strongly minded in pedagogy, the study, or if you like, the behavior of teaching children. And he was very influential on Mozart, as you can imagine. He tried to get the best out of Mozart, his son, Wolfgang Amadeus. So by the age of 5, he had already possibly done about 3,000 hours of practice on the piano. He had taught him from basically he was able to touch the keys of a piano or a violin. He was able to play violin as well, and also writing music. But it was found that Mozart more or less copied other people's works and kind of rearranged them based on what he had learned from other composers till he was roughly in his early teens, maybe 12, 13 years of age.
When he was 10,000 hours.
I wouldn't say he was being a plagiarist, but I'm saying he would maybe be able to rearrange what he had already known from other composers. So I think there's a difference there. So then after that, by the time he was in his 20s, then he was close to his 10,000 hours, if you like. He was purposeful, and his brain had developed to such a rate that we look back now and think, wow, wasn't he a genius? Wasn't that talent from a very early age? Wasn't it in his genes? Because his dad was also a fine musician. He was, apparently Leopold, his dad, was no great shakes as a performer, but he was a fantastic teacher and pedagogue. Yeah. This is what I've been reading again, and it was absolute, total news to me as well, and it was very surprising that because I had always thought, oh yes, Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, genius, it must have been in their genes. They were involved in music from a very early age. It must have been some sort of planetary alignment or whatever you want to call it. But the argument is very strong with this 10,000 hours of purposeful practice.
Yeah, it's no good if the work's not put in, is it?
I can't hear you. Sorry, Nicole.
I'm just saying it's no good if the work isn't put in. Personally, sure. I feel that there are definitely some people that could spend 1 million hours and it just wouldn't be their thing, that they have another talent. But also you talk about Mozart and, his dad, who was evidently quite a frightening character. Yeah. And I can't help thinking, what did that do to him as a person? I mean, I look at you and your job. Your job is about so much more than music, isn't it? Is it, as a principal player, you're having to be skilled in diplomacy, people management, time management? It's many things, and you should look at somebody like Mozart and think, I feel so sorry for him. Felt so sorry for him. Feel so sorry. It must have been a hideous upbringing.
It might have been, but it may not have been. If you, again, this book is really sort of, because I'm in the middle of it at the moment, I have to quote from it again. The Venus and Serena Williams, the two fantastic tennis players. Their dad really, if you look at them, their dad apparently really pushed them. But they look back on it and they've been quoted as saying it was such a blessing. It was a blessing to practice playing tennis. We loved it. We really wanted to do it. It wasn't something that we're forced to do. We really loved it. If you look at famous chess players from Hungary, there were 3 sisters that their dad set out in life to make sure that his daughters were world beaters in some area, and he decided on chess. So you could say, well, that isn't that sort of a form of punishment that they were being brutally put into this world of chess, but they say now that they absolutely loved it. And one of them has actually a chess school in Israel. One of the sisters, I can't remember the names, Judith and two others I can't remember. But their dad, Polgar, I think was his name, a Hungarian. He was no expert at chess, but he read the teaching of chess, and he read up loads of articles on how to teach the game. He learned everything he could about the game. And the three sisters, not just one, but all three became world beaters. One of them beat the famous, is it Gary Kasparov, is that right? The famous chess player. You can say, well, it's just a coincidence. It's just they had great talent because their dad really, did this and did that. But what about the other argument of, well, purposeful? And it's not. They look back on it and say, well, wasn't it a joy to play chess? Wasn't it fantastic to be together as a family playing chess together? What's wrong with that? I think we have to be careful as adults not to impose our will on young people. That there has to be a kind of a, I guess, would you call it a two-way street where we can influence as much as possible and point out the good and the bad of things, and then let people find their own way a little bit and encourage greatness rather than mediocrity. Why be mediocre at something when you can be amazing at something? But it has to be a little bit more from our two-way street, if you like, from kids to their teachers or their people that look after them.
If I could steer you just slightly away from this topic, which we could talk about all night, I know. We were talking the other day about the fundamentals of brass playing, and maintaining a healthy career. There's a few articles on the site about performance health, ranging from things like hand strain to things like performance anxiety, so the mental strain that you can have from a career like music. Have you had any problems or challenges in that sort of department, keeping your playing up there at that level for such a long time?
Yeah, I certainly have, and I think it's perfectly normal to go through some anxiety, because if you think about what you do as a trumpet player, for example, in an orchestra, you're one of perhaps 80 people, and sometimes the music stops and you just hear the trumpet by yourself, whether it's a Mahler symphony or in an operatic role or whatever. The trumpet sounds, and sometimes you have a fanfare, sometimes you have a lyrical solo, sometimes it's very high, sometimes very loud, sometimes very soft, sometimes very low, and so on and so on. So you have lots of different areas to look at, and it's important to keep your standards, to maintain your ability to do that. Otherwise you're found out immediately, not just after a few bad attempts, but immediately. And all you can do really is your best to maintain those. And something that I would do is concentrate heavily are the fundamentals. So what are fundamentals, you might ask? They could be such as just the initial production of sound. Are my lips in working order? Am I able to create a healthy buzz for the brass players that know about this? It's being able to go and maintaining that in a very healthy and efficient way. And of course, also maintaining your breathing, the apparatus that helps you to make your lips vibrate. So when you take a breath in, you fill your lungs with air, and then you blow out, you make your lips vibrate as a result of the air passing them. So without healthy lungs, or without using your lung capacity over many years to its maximum, you're in danger. I'm 45 now, and I'm this age where my rib cage could begin to it's called calcification of the rib cage, where it gets a bit stiff around your lungs and can cause a bit of tightness. So if I'm not maintaining my lungs well by doing good healthy breathing exercises every day, then I'm asking for trouble by the time I'm 50 perhaps. Maybe not, but if I don't do it, why risk it, So it's important to keep healthy, and I don't mean run marathons or do loads of cycling or something. You don't have to, you can, but it's really the maintenance of your ability to play the instrument. In my case, it's trumpet. So yeah, it's mental health is very strong, of course, as well. It's high on the agenda, and I think once you're able to, if you prepare well, if you do your best at preparation, whether it's one concert or 1,000 concerts that you have to do in your career, if you prepare for it well enough, you'll be fine. There's no need to go through mental angst, mental anxiety, because all you can do is your best.
Yeah, but you see, you say this about, as long as you do the work, you'll be fine. But speaking from personal experience, there's been some concerts which I've practiced for till I'm blue in the face. It's music I know extremely well, that I've played well before, and then I'm suddenly playing it in a particularly, especially a different circumstance, and the nerves start, and they will start suddenly like that. Suddenly, as I'm a violinist, not a trumpeter, of course, but I put my bow on the string, and my hands start to shake, and it's uncontrollable, and the adrenaline is surging through me, and that's not through lack of preparation. I know it really well. So you must get that as a principal trumpet. Do you not sit there suddenly, opening a Mahler 5, 6,000 people watching you? Is your heart hammering, or are you just zoning out into another place? How do you do it?
Well, I think a bit of everything there. I think you're absolutely right, and it's again perfectly normal to experience something like that. If you didn't have any sort of nerves, it would be a little bit strange, because you want to give the best to the music. First of all, you want to do your best. What the music is asking you. You also have people around you to consider. It's not just this kind of, if it's Mahler 5 you're talking about, for example, it's not this solo. Let's just give it gung ho. Let's just go for it. You have other people to consider as well, such as people in your section, other people in the orchestra, and there's a great amount of trust there that has to ebb and flow between the players, and also sort of a trust with the audience as well. You get back. There's a kind of a vibe you get from an audience sometimes, and sometimes the vibe is just different. If it's the Albert Hall, there's this amazing atmosphere during the proms, whereas you can walk into a very dry acoustic. I won't mention any halls, and don't want to be sort of prejudiced against anywhere, but it can be a completely different vibe and extremely scary, because it's not what you expected based on your experience. So experience is very important as well to fall back on, to know that I'm able to do this regardless of where I am, or who I'm playing to, or who I'm playing with. So it's normal to feel a little bit anxious, because things change from minute to minute. You feel differently from minute to minute. Let me just get rid of this thing on the screen, keeps popping up. So you have to take on board all those things. The other side of the coin is, you start to play, or just before you start to play, you said your heart starts to race, and because you get this flash of nerves, you might say, who told you to be nervous? Who gives you the right to be nervous? Who gave you permission to be nervous except yourself, right? So pressure is only there. The anxiety is only in your head. Nobody else told you in the audience. No one else said to you, or in the orchestra, whoever you're with, nor the conductor. They never said to you, you should be nervous for this. Yeah. So it's empowering. You're giving empowerment, if you like, to your people around you. It's all out there somewhere. It's all out in the audience. It's the audience's fault for making me nervous. They weren't here yesterday. I could do this yesterday. So you're
worrying about what everybody else is thinking of you, isn't it?
Absolutely. You've no control over that. You've no power over that whatsoever. And all the time, they're only thinking how good this could be, not how bad you're going to be. Never it's how bad you can be, unless someone hates you. That's another matter. But it's always going to be, if it's an audition circumstance, you walk in, if there are 5 people or 50 people in an audition, you walk in, they're all on your side, whether you realize it or not. The only pressure that's there is in your head.
Yeah. Well said. We've got a trumpety question here from our anonymous attendee. Go on, give us your name. Go on. She says, have you ever played the Schegel Approdato mouthpiece, or any of the Schegel trumpet models? Am I pronouncing that right? I'm not sure.
Schegel or Schagel, is it Schagerl?
That's the one.
Yeah, I have one just right by my side here. I have a Schegel C trumpet, which has actually belonged to the orchestra I work for. And Yes, I have Shigar mouthpiece. Yes, a couple of them, possibly. Yes, I want to know why they ask.
Why do you ask? Tell us. And in the meantime, oh dear, yes, all right, okay. And also, Laura is asking, what trumpet
Laura.
brass player specific techniques do you rely on when the nerves do hit, like in an audition or whatever? Are there any sort of calm yourself down techniques that you rely on?
Yeah, you can do many things. I guess every situation is different. So again, based on experience of past experiences, how you've dealt with things. Did that actually work? Can I try something new today? If I'm feeling nervous, shall I do something different? But some of the things I might use could be just taking a deep breath, letting it go. Just this idea of deep breathing and making sure everything's still working. The fundamentals are there, that I'm able to produce a sound, even if it's not as good a sound as it was yesterday. But I think two questions that you should ask yourself always is, the two questions could be, can the next note sound better, and can it be easy? And if you focus on that, those two things, then you're moving forward to the next note and the next note and the next note. And before you know it, the performance is finished and you think, okay, this is sort of a journey going on there. Can I sound good on the next note, and can it be easy?
How do you mean, can it be easy?
Can it be sounding better, but also can it feel easier? Can I get myself into such a state, if you like, that everything feels really easy and it just flows. It's just effortless.
So you're sort of focusing on the mechanics of it almost, rather than the fact that everyone's watching you and it's all
yeah, it's some. I mean, you could call it focusing on one particular point. For example, right now I'm looking at the green light on the computer. I'm not actually looking at anything else other than that. And if I look away, I'm distracted. I'm looking at other things, and I'm looking at the wallpaper, how boring it is. But for a moment, I'm focusing on the green light, and I'm able to have flow because of that. I'm able to kind of keep my attention on the subject rather than on the wallpaper or the lighting, what's over there, and I'm distracted suddenly. But if I'm thinking something positive, something like, can this next note sound better, or can this next phrase sound better, and can it be easy? Can I find a way that I'm always have got this flow to things? And it's like maybe making a speech. I often liken music making as giving a speech, or performance in music as giving a speech, perhaps at a wedding, if you're best man, or a school debate, for example, college debate. So you stand up in front of however many people. Can what you're about to say make sense? If you say words very disjointedly and in a little bit of a hesitant state, then people kind of get the message, but it doesn't have flow. It doesn't have much meaning. And if you liken that to a musical phrase, if you get the stutters, if you like, if things get a bit nervy, perhaps, for want of a better expression, things don't speak well, things aren't easy, then the meaning is lost. The musical meaning is lost. So after all, the music is the highest of the pyramid, isn't it? It's the how the music sounds. Does it make sense? That's the highest thing. All the technique in the world isn't necessarily going to make the music better. It helps, but it's not the highest on the agenda at that point in time. It's making sense of what the music is wanting you to do. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so it's the foundations really, and you concentrate on your foundations when you're panicking. You're concentrating on your foundations being solid. You can then enjoy that top bit rather than freaking
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely.
We've got a question from Edward here, who says, what made Maurice Murphy such a legendary trumpet player for the LSO? I had the privilege of knowing Maurice, who was one of the funniest men, him and Rod Franks. Mm-hmm. What a pair. And I mean, what was it? It was truly magical, wasn't it, when he played? Even when he split notes, they were cool. I mean, What was it about him in your eyes?
Yeah, just go to split notes for a minute when you said that. They're also cool because they're also interesting. And a little bit of one of the questions I would have for people is what's more important, splitting a note or getting it perfect? If the split is somehow interesting, isn't that okay? If it's also interesting to have a note that isn't written on the page in front of you. The notes are only a guide after all. The notes are just there as a sort of a map. And how often have you been, if anyone does orienteering or even map reading, we have sat navs now, so it's all very easy. But if you do the old fashioned trying to get from London to Glasgow by car, you get a map out. And how often have you made that a perfect journey? How often has it been so perfect that you've never made a mistake in your driving from London to Glasgow? And if you liken that to a symphony, how often have you heard a live performance where it's been perfect? Is that really interesting? It might be great to hear it, but it's if you hear a split, that's also interesting, I believe. I also think
I think there's the element of danger that, you know, somebody's really on the edge and they're going for it, and then nothing's going to stop them going for it. Sod it if it goes. Use my language, but you know, I love that feeling of it. Just gives it that excitement, that live.
Sure. And you've kind of answered the question in a way by what is it about? What was it about Maurice Murphy and Rod Franks that so amazing, the sound? So it could be many things, and it's, I guess, for me it's like the singing quality in their sounds. It's if you like, if you get very technical for a moment about the ability to play a trumpet or a brass instrument, is the ability to buzz your lips, as I said earlier, this kind of idea. And when we talk or sing, we have our vocal cords which are vibrating much the same way as two lips are vibrating. If you hold your throat like this and say ah or sing a piece, you can feel this vibration. And I think it's likened a lot to a trombone player's lips. Actually, it's the kind of same frequency as a trombone player on a trombone mouthpiece. So the dynamics of it, if you like, are very similar. The idea that your vocal cords are vibrating when you talk and when you sing, as much as the vibration on your lips when you play a brass instrument. So there's a lot of similarities there. So if you think of then the singing quality in Maurice Murphy's playing, it's in a way a very strong understanding of what the music is asking him to do. Again, you know, how to communicate what's written on the page in front of you into something meaningful. Does it make sense? Or is it just a series of notes that sound really good and they're all in the right order, in the right tempo, with a nice sound? The intonation is good. But is there more than that to it? Is it like an operatic aria, perhaps? Could you sing what Maurice is playing? Could Maurice play what a singer sings? Yeah. Does that make any sense?
It does. And it's interesting, actually, that talking about this intonation and stuff, I was just looking at your poll. There's
I'm leaving little clues every now and again as to that.
Yeah. I was looking particularly at question 3 of the poll, which asks trumpet playing is the most important. Intonational rhythm. Now, personally, I would say, I was talking to my mum about this before it started, actually, and we thought, actually, intonation, not getting the wrong note, not splitting it, intonation, because if it's not in tune, you can't enjoy the beautiful sound. And of course, got to be, I mean, obviously all 3 are really important, but we were saying intonation, but then many more people on this are saying sound. What do you think?
You perhaps, and it's very easy to do this, you're perhaps thinking of it as being a trained musician, and it's very easy to do that. But if you listen to some perhaps Eastern music, we have kind of the diatonic system, the scales, and which all makes sense. You know, the major and minor, the whole tone scales, and they're all either equal temperament or whatever temperament you have. And it's very easy to think about intonation in those terms because we have trained, very loosely speaking, trained ears in that sense. we get used to hearing things a certain way. But what if the music involves quarter tones? It will sound out of tune to the, again, trained ear. So I think if cut to the chase, basically, in my opinion, all three of those things are equally important. Your sound.
On the poll, you have to say one. You see.
No. I'm cheating. Yeah. I'm cheating. I cheated on the last one. Yeah, so let's go, for example, a non-musician walks into a concert. What do they expect to hear? They expect to hear, whether they realize it or not, someone playing or singing with a good sound. Now, if it's a piano and it's, if the piano sounds nice, that's great. Normally pianos are. Let's say it's just a normal concert. Someone expects to hear someone playing or singing with a good sound. Again, playing or singing with good rhythm, playing or singing with good intonation. If one of those things is missing, say, for example, the singer can sing in tune and has good rhythm, but the quality of voice is a bit harsh. People start weeping, not really sure what's wrong. If they start singing out of tune, and again, it's meant to be in tune, where we know it, if you like, to Western ears, then they're maybe not sure what it is that's wrong, but they'll feel a bit uncomfortable because it sounds slightly unnerving, I think. And if it's unrhythmic, well, it's not easy to dance to, perhaps. If it's meant to be very rhythmic piece, if they're meant to be with the piano all the time, and they're missing their cues every so often, or if it's an opera and they keep coming in late or too early with what the orchestra is doing, again, people feel a bit uncomfortable. They may not know exactly what it is, but they'll feel uncomfortable. So if one aspect of those, sound, intonation, and rhythm, if one aspect is missing, it will begin to have a bad effect. Now, if two of those aspects are missing, you're really looking for trouble. And if all three are missing, well, you wouldn't go back to the concert in the first place. You wouldn't go back to the performance of that person, would you? So I know there are more things to that, to music making, as we talked about earlier, about making a phrase, sounding, singing quality, and making sense of the music, such as making a speech, or saying a sentence, or even saying your name that makes sense to other people. There are lots of things that go on, but the three basic things, if one of those is missing, sound, intonation, rhythm, and then you've kind of shot yourself in the foot a little bit.
Yeah. One of the other poll questions that I really loved was the one about which player in the orchestra can make the principal trumpet sound good or bad.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants second trumpet, and I agree with them. I think if your second trumpet isn't with you, then it's not a section, is it? And that's, the viola's hopefully too far away to do any damage. And the principal trombone, I mean, how much do you actually have with a principal trombone? I mean, as a violinist, I'm not aware enough really of these things.
Yeah. Sometimes it's very, very independent. We're very independent of each other, even though very often we're sitting next to each other. I'm extremely fortunate that Simon Johnson, as the principal trombone player, sit with mostly. It's absolutely fabulous. He's just done 2 concertos last week with the orchestra.
How did they go? They're great.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Great feedback about it.
Yeah. One by Francisco Call on Thursday night at City Hall's Glasgow, and the following night in Ayr Town Hall, he did the famous David, that's the right pronunciation, David trombone concerto. And both were amazing, absolutely amazing, world class. He's put in his 10,000 hours practice purposefully, I would imagine. And in fact, I know for a fact he has, because I was at college with him many, many years ago. Not too many years ago, a few years back.
A couple of years ago, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, second trumpet, very much important, because again, it goes back to sound, intonation, and rhythm. If one of those things is missing, and if I'm always right, for example, there's nothing I can do to make me sound. You're only as good as your second trumpet. If he's playing or she's playing out of tune or out of time or with a bad sound, it's going to make very, very often we have octaves or fourths or fifths or thirds, sixths, and so on. And if those aren't lining up nicely in tune, or if there's bad rhythm with what you're doing, or if there's a bad sound compared to yours, well, you're kind of you're only as good as that person then.
Yeah. The last question on the poll is which Mahler symphony has an offstage flugelhorn part? And majority here think 3, and I'm looking at 3. Mahler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very clever people. Yay, very clever people
Do
here.
you ever get to play off stage, or is it you're always going to be on stage as the principal?
Have I ever done?
Do you ever get to play off stage with as a principal trumpet? Do they ever say, "Go on, then you can, go home early,
Sure,
play off
sure.
stage"? Are you ever allowed to?
Yeah, there's a funny story about that. Actually, Mala 3 in the Proms some years ago, it was televised live on BBC 3, I think, or 4, 3, I
Or
think.
three is a comedy
Oh,
channel. Hopefully not.
oh, and maybe not 3 then. Okay. So it was televised, and I walked off stage from the normal position out off stage where it's meant to be played from, and someone commented on a blog or something, asking was the first trumpet player put on the naughty step for that bit. Kind of maybe appropriate, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's fun to do that thing. And there's another piece also, The Pines of Rome by Respighi, that has an offstage trumpet. We did that again maybe 2 years ago at the Proms, and it's fun to do it. It's fun to what you feel as if everyone's watching your course walking off stage. Why is he going off stage? What has he done? Does he feel unwell? Is there something wrong? What's the big deal? And then they hear this offstage trumpet coming in from the sides and then walking back on again. If it goes well, you can kind of sigh of relief and walk back head high. But if it goes not so well, you're kind of
Just won't go
hoping
back on stage.
notices you. Just stay off stage on the naughty step, yeah.
For one. I've got a question here from our still anonymous attendee. Please give us your name. Go on.
Hello.
She is asking again about the Schlegel Approdato, saying, does it compare well to other symphonic mouthpieces? I'm assuming, are you about to buy one? Are you anonymous? I don't know. How do you compare it?
I think it's a very bespoke thing. I think it's mouthpieces. I'm a very bad person to ask, I guess, because I keep changing my mind on things. And some weeks, some mouthpiece will seemingly sound much better than last week's one, and it will feel better. And then the following week, it will be the opposite. And very few people I know actually stay on one mouthpiece their whole life. So it's very what's the right word? Very personal to the player. So if I was to say, oh yes, everyone should use this mouthpiece, I think it's amazing, you should all get this particular mouthpiece, then I would be doing it everyone a disservice, because what works for one will not work for another. And it's a question of finding out and experimenting for yourself. Experimentation is great. I think it's very, very good and very healthy. Again, it can become an obsession, but I think you have to try things. And so it's a very non-committal answer, I'm afraid. Sorry.
He's revealed himself. Called Greg. Hi, Greg. Brilliant. And he says he's a trumpet player currently playing on an Alliance 3A and needs to find a go-to mouthpiece for the trumpet. So I think
okay.
The answer there, is it?
Same answer, I think. Yeah, experiment. If you have a teacher that has a stock of mouthpieces, very often they do. Ask, can I try? Go to a shop, they'll usually let you try. There are loads of brass shops in the UK and around the world, in fact, wherever you are, Greg. So go and try, go and ask, can I borrow this? Can I try this one for a week? Can I try it for a month? Beg, borrow, steal.
Yeah. Edward's asking.
Don't steal. No, don't steal. Just beg or borrow.
Edward's asking again, if I can only practice about 15 minutes a day, which is all he can do at the moment, what is the most effective types of practice to build up a range so he can hit higher notes?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure if I can answer that, because we're all so different again. And is it purposeful practice as well? All those things come to mind again. All I can do from my own point of view, from my own experience, is this man Vincent Chikovitz was, I think he was second trumpet or third trumpet in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, going back possibly to the 70s and 80s, maybe even into the 90s. Probably I'll be shot down in flames by the people that know all these things. But Vincent Chikovitz has been a big influence in my practice, and I usually start the day, the first sounds I make are usually based on the Vincent Chikovitz flow studies. And it's the idea of so, fi, so, la, so, mi, do. So forgive my singing, but it's so, fi, so, la, so, mi, do. Roughly speaking, that's the basic hymn, if you like. And the idea is that you have flow there. Again, the idea that we talked about earlier of making the first note sound good, making the next note sound better, and the next note sound better, and so on and so on. And also being easy to play. Can the next note be easier to play than the first one that you just did? And so on and so on. So you keep adding a note. So then you go so, fi, so, la, do, la, so, mi, do. So, fi, so, la, do, re, do, la, so, mi, do. So, fi, so, la, do, re, mi, do, so, mi, do. And so on and so on. You keep adding a note upwards or downwards if you like, if you want to extend your lower range into pedal notes. But again, I guess we're getting a bit technical with it, but it's the idea of you're adding a layer each time you're going a little bit higher. And that can take 5 seconds to 5 hours if you want. You can do that all day long if you wish. But always asking yourself the question, can the next note sound better and be easy? There's no point trying to strain for the high register if it's not going to sound very nice. There's no point kind of reaching for the sky if it's not going to sound very nice or be very easy. You're just going to put a lot of pressure on yourself. And why repeat ugly sounds if you make good ones?
We're going to have to end in a minute, but I just wanted to ask you before the end.
It was my singing, wasn't it? Sorry.
What can I say? Better than I can sing. I was going to ask, what's the most challenging orchestral repertoire pieces, and also the most challenging solo ones? Why are they challenging?
Okay. For me, again, very personal thing. What's difficult to one person will be very easy, and vice versa to the next. I find classical repertoire extremely difficult to do well. A lot of people think it's Star Wars is difficult, and Mahler symphonies and Strauss. It's all very difficult stuff. It can be, but I find personally that the likes of Mozart symphonies is very difficult, because what we have in Mozart symphonies and Haydn is the idea of do and so, the tonic dominant, and it repeats a lot of repetition there. And everybody knows the Mozart symphonies. If one note is out of place, everyone hears it. If you split a note in Mozart symphony, if it's not used perfectly and with the same character of sound that you did in the last note, people start to notice very quickly. So those for me are the most difficult ones. There's a notorious passage in Beethoven's violin concerto in the second trumpet part. It's very quiet, and the first and second player play in octaves. And the second part is notorious because it's quite low, and you have to produce it very, very softly. It's pianissimo on the part. It has to be heard, but not in a not heard, if you know what I mean. It has to blend in, and it's quite notorious to produce that kind of quality of sound, good quality of sound, very quietly in the low register in a classical early romantic piece. So those pieces, that type of repertoire, the classical early romantic repertoire, for me, are the hardest pieces to play.
And solo-wise?
Solo-wise, that could be the Haydn Trumpet Concerto, or it could be the piece that was written yesterday. It's again how you prepare for it, and preparation is everything. I just did this piece last week by the composer Bramwell Tovey, who also conducted the piece. It was we did this in Manchester. It's a solo trumpet concerto called Songs of the Paradise Saloon, and until very recently, I started learning it about 3 months ago, and I thought, this is the most difficult thing I've ever done. This is a really difficult piece. This has to be the hardest piece. And we did it, and we recorded it, and now it seems not so difficult as I thought. Last year it was a different piece. It was by James Macmillan, called Epiclesis Trumpet Concerto. And when I started learning it, at first I thought, this is by far the hardest piece I've ever done. After playing it a couple of times in performance, it didn't seem like the hardest piece anymore. So whatever that means to you, I don't know, but it's the striving to be, it's getting over that thing that you think is too difficult at the time, and working towards it. That's purposeful. I think there's a lot, again, going back to the beginning where we talked about Bounce, the book Bounce by Matthew Said. This idea of purposeful practice, getting the right conditions, and working and working and working till you get it right. The Tiger Woods idea, where he's out in the golf course all day long, practicing the same shot over and over and over till he gets it right. Whether it's tennis or cycling or running or making music, it's the same thing.
Wonderful. Mark, thank you so much. I think we're going to have to leave it there now, but thank you everybody that's come along tonight. You joined in our very first webinar and we're really grateful. And if anybody wants a lesson with Mark, he's also teaching online, so do come along to the website and have a look. And also please do send us your feedback, because we want to know which bits about this you liked and which bits you didn't like maybe. I'm sure it was all marvellous. I enjoyed it hugely. So thank you very much, Mark, and thanks everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Our little friends are flying through the galaxy.